Chapter 1, Silver Dragon Dungeon. The damp air of the dungeon was suffocating, the scent of stone and iron mixed with ancient magic. Heavy footfalls echoed in the dim chamber, followed by a voice like silk over steel. Her Majesty. A silver-clad guard bowed low. Shall we execute him now, Your Majesty? Rosweiss raised a hand, her silver eyes gleaming with cold command. You all leave. I want to speak to him alone. The guards exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed. Yes, Your Majesty. The door groaned shut behind them, leaving only two beings in the vast, silent dungeon. Rosweiss approached the broken man chained to the wall, her movements as graceful as they were predatory. Leon Cosmode, the great dragon-slaying hero. How does it feel to be a prisoner of our dragon clan? Leon's breath was ragged, his body slumped in exhaustion. Yet his defiance burned bright in his eyes. Kill me. Rosweiss' lips curled into a smile, an unsettling mix of amusement and cruelty. She crouched before him, tracing his chin with a razor-sharp nail. Oh, you want me to give you a quick death? Her smile deepened. But it's not that easy. She leaned closer, her breath warm on his skin. You are quite handsome, aren't you? Suddenly, her claw sliced across his cheek. Blood welled from the wound. Let's add a few scars to make you even more perfect. Leon grimaced but refused to cry out. Stop humiliating me. Just get it over with. Kill me, chop me up, just do it fast. Rosweiss chuckled, her voice dripping with mockery. How noble. If not for the schemes of others, you wouldn't have fallen so far. But I have an idea. She lifted her blood-stained fingers to her lips and licked them slowly, savoring the taste. Join our Silver Dragon clan, Leon. Leon glared. Are you worthy? Her smile vanished. In an instant, her tail whipped through the air, slamming him into the wall. Leon coughed, blood spilling from his lips. Rosweiss stepped over him, her heel pressing into his chest. How dare a prisoner speak to me that way? Her voice dripped with disdain. Leon Cosmode, do you still see yourself as the hero mankind once praised? Do you dream of wiping out the Dragon Clan and becoming a legend? She leaned closer, whispering, Wake up. You'll die here, a forgotten fool, an insect squashed under the claw of a dragon. Leon gritted his teeth, his defiant gaze unwavering. Don't underestimate humans. Rosweiss' eyes flashed. In one fluid motion, her tail wrapped around his neck, lifting him into the air. He struggled against the crushing force but managed a pained grin. Two mistakes, Rosweiss. Leon gasped. First, you shouldn't have stayed alone with the most dangerous dragon slayer alive. Her expression flickered with confusion. And second, blood dripped from Leon's lips as his grin widened. You should never taste my blood. Blood curse. Rosweiss' tail loosened in shock, and Leon fell to the ground, gasping for air. A strange heat began to spread through her body. It's so hot. What have you done to me? She whispered, clutching her chest as if it burned from within. Leon coughed, dragging himself to his feet. The blood curse, it's a forbidden spell. By tasting my blood, you've formed a soul bond with me. When I die, the curse will drown you in endless pain, for the rest of your life. Rosweiss' eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. If it only activates upon your death, then why is this happening now? Leon smirked. The curse has side effects. Before she could react, she felt herself drawn toward him, her body betraying her mind. She pushed Leon to the ground, panting heavily. What? What's happening to me? She gasped, her silver hair falling over his face. Without thinking, she kissed him, a desperate hunger driving her actions.
An hour later. The cold dungeon air kissed their bare skin. Rosweiss sat up, covering herself with her arms, her cheeks flushed with shame and fury. What did you do to me? She demanded. Leon lay on the ground, his body battered but his grin victorious. I told you. The blood curse creates a soul bond. When I die, the pain will haunt you forever. But until then, well, I didn't expect this particular side effect. Roswei's fists clenched as she struggled to contain her emotions. Nonsense! We dragons follow the rule of monogamy. No. Leon interrupted, his grin widening. And that's the beauty of it. When I die, not only will you never have another mate, you'll also have no descendants. No dragon successor. Just like you said I wouldn't. Her fury exploded. She grabbed a nearby cloth to cover herself, and lunged at him, striking him across the face. You bastard! Leon coughed, laughing despite the pain. You want to kill me? Go ahead. But I won't be the only one suffering. Rosweiss glared down at him, her body trembling with rage and confusion. You are just a human. And you've taken your revenge in the most despicable way, she whispered. Leon closed his eyes, his voice a low whisper. Live with hatred for me, and pain for the rest of your life. That's my curse to you. Rosweiss stood, her expression unreadable as she donned her clothes. You want to die so easily? How can it be so cheap? Once a legendary dragon-slaying hero, lay in a dimly lit room. Memories of his glorious past flashed before his eyes, and he felt the weight of his current predicament. As a child prodigy, he was renowned for his strength and bravery, but those days felt like a distant dream. At the age of 5, Leon had killed a vicious beast threatening his village with nothing but his bare hands. His innate prowess caught the attention of a passing dragon slayer, who took him under his wing. By the time he turned 10, he had entered the prestigious Imperial Dragon Slayer Academy. 4 years later, he graduated with the highest honors in history, becoming the youngest graduate ever to achieve such a feat. At 15, he stepped onto the battlefield, facing dragons and reclaiming lost territories for the Empire. With each battle fought, his name grew more legendary. Leon was known as the strongest dragon-slaying hero and humanity's last hope in the war against the dragons. However, everything changed when he was captured by the very clan he had sworn to eradicate. Leon's eyes fluttered open, and reality crashed in around him. The familiar smell of damp stone and the distant flicker of light brought him back to consciousness. Where am I? He muttered, his voice hoarse and barely above a whisper. As he sat up, a small figure peeked through the door, her wide eyes sparkling with innocence. Hey, you're awake! She exclaimed. Leon squinted, confusion washing over him as he registered her presence. Who are you? He asked. The little girl stepped into the room, revealing a strange mix of black and white hair cascading down her small shoulders. What a good name! Leon responded, curious. But why is your hair like that? Mom said it means the moon, she replied proudly. Angels have mothers too? He wondered aloud. Uh-huh. My name is Leon. Leon Cosmode, he said. I know. Leon means lion, she exclaimed with excitement. Who told you this? Leon asked, intrigued. That's what my mom said too, she answered with a big smile. Suddenly, the name Rosweiss crashed over him like a tidal wave. He felt shock ripple through him as he processed the revelation. May I ask who your mother is? He inquired. Rosweiss, she said cheerfully. He gasped, realizing the implications. Your mother is Rosweiss. Then, I am, she trailed off. The weight of the revelation crushed him. You are my daughter? He asked incredulously. At that moment, the door swung open, and Rosweiss entered, a mixture of annoyance and relief on her face. Mom! Mom, Dad is awake! The little girl squealed. Yeah, I know. You finally woke up, Leon, Rosweiss said, her expression softening slightly. Yet, There was an underlying tension in her tone. Mom must be happy to see Dad awake because you come to visit him every day, she added with a hint of sarcasm. Leon's thoughts spiraled in disbelief as he processed her words. Only a ghost would believe that, he thought. Myun, go out and play for a while. I have something to say to your father, Rosweiss instructed. Okay, Myun replied and skipped out of the room. As soon as the door closed, Leon turned to Rosweiss, his heart heavy with confusion and resentment. Is she really my daughter? He asked, searching her eyes for answers. Of course. What else could she be? She is our biological daughter, Rosweiss replied, her tone matter-of-fact.
Leon's expression twisted with a mix of anger and disbelief. You hate me. Why did you give birth to the child? Why did you save me? He demanded. Rosweiss' expression hardened. You've been asleep for 2 years. Do you think I could just let go after what you did to me? She shot back, her voice rising with emotion. Leon felt the heat of her words. Why, did you save me? We are different. We cannot coexist. If it were any other time, I would never have touched you, he replied, frustration evident in his voice. Oh? So touching me is also torture for you? Rosweiss retorted, her eyes narrowing. With a sudden burst of movement, Rosweiss pushed him back against the bed, her expression a fierce blend of anger and determination. I want to carve my own dragon pattern on you, she declared, climbing on top of him, pinning him down with surprising strength. Stop it, Rosweiss. Leon protested, feeling vulnerable beneath her grip. Rosweiss' hands moved swiftly, tearing at his shirt and exposing his chest. This will become your shame, Leon. From now on, you will be my prisoner. You will never leave me, she said, her voice laced with dark satisfaction. When your fellow humans see the dragon tattoo on your body, what will they think? Will they see a great dragon-slaying hero or a traitor who surrendered to the dragon clan? Leon shot back defiantly. Rosweiss' eyes blazed with a dark intensity, her voice low and filled with malice. Why, do it to this extent, he pressed, struggling to understand her motivations. Don't you understand? Leon, the dragon race's concept of revenge is complex and deeply ingrained. Their desire for vengeance is an inhuman trait, paranoia, extreme, and beyond human understanding, she explained, her tone unwavering. Leon felt a cold dread settle in the pit of his stomach, a sense of helplessness creeping in as he realized the full scope of Rosweiss' intentions. In that moment, something within him stirred, a mix of defiance and despair. He refused to let her have the satisfaction of breaking him entirely. This feeling, he murmured, caught in the intensity of their confrontation. Rosweiss leaned closer, her breath mingling with his. The tension between them was palpable, a strange dance of love and hate, revenge and vulnerability, a clash of two worlds destined to collide. Although this is incredible from a human perspective, this is my revenge on you as a dragon, Rosweiss said, their lips hovering near each other. As the air thickened with unspoken words, the line between captor and captive blurred. The stage was set for a conflict neither of them could have anticipated, a battle of wills where love and hatred intertwined. End of Chapter 2.
The Silver Dragon Castle. In the grand halls of the Silver Dragon Castle, two maids exchanged whispers. The queen seems to be in a good mood today, one remarked, glancing toward the throne room. You don't know this, her husband has finally woken up. The other maid replied, excitement lacing her words. Bah! That female dragon actually announced to the public that I was her husband. The first maid scoffed, rolling her eyes. You have no idea how terrifying that mother dragon is. The second maid replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Meanwhile, Leon, the dragon slayer, found himself lost in thought, recalling the previous night. Move! Move faster, Leon. Rossweiss had urged him, her voice echoing in his mind. Ugh, she squeezed me for a whole day and night. My waist is almost broken. He groaned, frustration welling up inside him. I, Leon, will never stay here and become her plaything. He glanced around the castle, noting the 4 dragons guarding the side door. It felt impossible to escape. Yet, something was off. Why were there so few guards today? The castle felt eerily quiet compared to the chaos from when he had arrived 2 years prior. Huh? How come there is a hole here? He murmured, spotting a small gap in the wall. This can't be a trap, can it? With determination, he slapped his hands together. Never mind, I can't think too much right now. I have to leave here no matter what. Even if it is a trap, I will force my way out. Goodbye, perverted mother dragon. As for the little dragon named Myun, although she is very cute, she can only be yours for the time being. He declared, a hint of resolve in his voice. Above him, his daughter Myun spotted him from the castle roof. Mom, look. Dad is digging a dog hole. How cool! She exclaimed, stretching out on the sun-warmed roof. I saw it. He's pretty awesome, her mother, Rossweiss, replied with a hint of pride. When will Mom go and catch him back? Myun asked innocently, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Myun, you can't say fish him back when talking about your dad. It's very rude, Rossweiss corrected, her tone light yet firm. So what should I say? Myun asked, puzzled. Just say catch him back, Rossweiss said, a small smile tugging at her lips. After some time, Leon continued his escape, pushing himself as he ran. After climbing over these mountains, I'll see the borders of human territory, he thought, determination fueling his steps. After running so far, that female dragon shouldn't catch up with me, right? Suddenly, he shouted in surprise, recognizing a familiar voice. Rossweiss. You are quite a runner, Leon, she teased, gliding through the air above him in her majestic dragon form. Damn it. He cursed under his breath, frustration mounting. It must be fun to play with me like this, right? Rossweiss descended, her scales glinting in the sunlight. I am indeed very satisfied. Don't you think this is too smooth? Who helped you divert the guards and left a hole for you to escape? Leon shot her a serious look, determination etched on his face. Even if I knew it was a trap, I had no choice. I just didn't expect you to catch up so quickly. She leaned closer, her enormous dragon head towering over him, casting a shadow. What will happen if you return to human territory now? You already have my mark on your chest. Do you think they will still recognize you as a dragon slayer? Leon met her gaze with fierce conviction. Then I will start my life again as an ordinary person, which is better than being tortured by you. Rossweiss flared her wings in frustration. TSK. You don't know how to appreciate my kindness. Wah! Leon shouted as she scooped him up in her claws, sending his heart racing. Let me go. Where are you taking me, you dragon? He yelled, panic rising. Since you want to go back so much, I will help you, she declared, and with a powerful flap of her wings, they soared through the sky. 3 hours later, they neared the Empire's border city. With a flick of her claws, Rossweiss tossed him gently into a tree. Wah wah. It hurts, he groaned as he landed awkwardly. Leon blinked in surprise as he looked around. Is this a human town? Rossweiss suddenly appeared beside him, a teasing smile on her lips. That's right. That's the human empire. When you see the long-lost human town, do you feel that you can return to the human world just by stepping over it? But Leon, you can't go back, even if it seems so close at hand. She warned, her expression shifting to one of seriousness. Oh, I forgot to mention, Rossweiss continued, her tone turning sultry. When one of the 2 people with the dragon mark wants to have sex with the other, the dragon male will produce a reaction. Leon's heart raced as he processed her words. Do you want to be here? Yes. Do you know why I brought you here? I want you to understand what shame is right in front of your hometown, so close to it. She replied, her gaze piercing through him. Leon, fueled by a mix of defiance and attraction, met her eyes with confidence. Do you think I will lose faith because of this? He suddenly grabbed her hand, his voice steady. I will wait patiently until that opportunity comes. By then, I will repay you double for all the humiliation you've put me through. Rosweiss' eyes sparkled with intrigue. Oh, okay. With a playful smile, she leaned in closer, pressing her body against his. I'll be waiting for you, dead or alive. She teased, rubbing her form against him, sending shivers down his spine. End of chapter 3.
Near the border city of the Empire, in the stillness of the wilderness, under the canopy of towering trees, Leon lay sprawled on a thick branch, his breath steady but his mind disoriented. His shirt lay discarded to the side, and next to him, Rosweiss adjusted the delicate folds of her clothes, her silver hair shimmering as sunlight peeked through the leaves. A satisfied, almost wicked grin curled on her lips as she finished dressing. I must say, Leon, Rosweiss murmured in a teasing tone, her voice honeyed with amusement, I'm very satisfied with your performance just now. She playfully ran a finger down the center of his bare chest, tracing his scars with mock tenderness, her silver eyes glinting mischievously. How about I bring you back here every month? A little trip to your hometown to keep the spark alive? Leon's brows furrowed as he shoved her hand away with mild irritation. Bah! He barked, sitting up and running a hand through his disheveled hair. You're a dragon with your head in the clouds, always scheming how to drain me dry. Rosweiss' grin widened, a playful light dancing in her eyes. TSK. So, you've seen through me, she admitted, her wings unfurling slightly as if in mock defeat. Her smile was both sly and affectionate. But enough rest. Let's go. Our daughter is waiting for us. Leon scowled as he rose to his feet, dusting off the leaves clinging to his trousers. Wait a minute, he grumbled. Rosweiss gave him a bemused glance, her arms folded. As a dragon slayer, Leon declared with his usual bravado, I won't be treated like some helpless prey. I can walk just fine on my own. Rosweiss arched a brow, clearly amused by his stubbornness. Oh, can you now? She asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. From here to the Silver Dragon Castle, it takes 3 hours flying at my speed. On foot, it'll take you at least 10 days. Maybe half a month if you don't get eaten first. Leon scoffed, crossing his arms. It's just 10 days. Don't underestimate human endurance. Rosweiss smirked. I'd love to see how far that endurance takes you. Later on the forest path, the sun dipped lower into the sky, and the once confident swagger in Leon's step had dwindled to a slow trudge. Sweat dripped down his brow, and his breath grew ragged. Huff, huff. His legs trembled with each step, though he stubbornly pressed on, not wanting to admit defeat. Rosweiss hovered beside him, walking gracefully with that same amused grin plastered on her face. Can't walk anymore, she asked sweetly. If you ask nicely, I might carry you. Leon shot her a defiant glare. Who said I was tired? He snapped, though his voice lacked its usual bite. Rosweiss chuckled under her breath. The only thing tough about you is that sharp tongue. Before Leon could retort, movement caught his eye ahead. Mounted soldiers clad in armor, their banners fluttering in the breeze. His heart skipped a beat. Dragon slayers. A mix of emotions swirled inside him. Hope, fear, and dread. If they recognize Rosweiss, this could turn ugly. One of the soldiers, a man with a grizzled beard and a stern gaze, called out as they approached. You too. Are you lost? Leon forced a strained smile, nudging Rosweiss to play along. No, just out for a stroll. The soldier gave them a dubious glance. This forest isn't exactly a place for casual strolls. Dangerous creatures roam here. He tipped his helmet. I'm Captain Walker of the 47th Imperial Dragon Slayer Squadron. If you need help, I can offer you a ride. Leon's heart raced as he noticed Rosweiss' expression darken. Her silver eyes narrowed, and he could feel the tension rising from her in waves. She's ready to kill them. Not good. Leon reacted instinctively, grabbing Rosweiss' wrist just before she could summon her magic. He yanked her toward him, and her soft, lithe body collided with his. For a moment, she froze, her breath hitching in surprise as her chest pressed against him. "Sir," Leon said, plastering a sheepish grin on his face. "You must have me confused with someone else. I just have one of those faces that everyone recognizes." He gave Rosweiss a sidelong glance, whispering urgently, "Play along." Captain Walker chuckled, the tension in the air easing. Well, you two look like quite the pair." Leon tightened his hold on Rosweiss's waist, giving her a warm, if slightly panicked, smile. "Right, honey, my wife even forgets who I am sometimes." Rosweiss' eye twitched with annoyance, but she forced a smile, her sharp teeth gleaming dangerously. Walker laughed heartily. "I won't get in the way of lovebirds, then. Enjoy your stroll." As the soldiers rode away, Leon finally released Rosweiss. "You've hugged enough," she muttered, her voice low with irritation. Leon rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Hey, it worked, didn't it?" Rosweiss crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. "You were smart not to call for help. But don't get any ideas, Leon." She leaned in close, her voice a low growl. "Just because we have children doesn't mean I'm your wife." Leon rolled his eyes. "I never said I wanted to be your husband." Rosweiss snorted, flicking her hair over her shoulder as she turned away. "Come on. We still have a long way to go." Leon followed her, grumbling under his breath. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through the hand he had grabbed Rosweiss with. His fingers throbbed, red marks spreading across his skin as his vision blurred. Ugh! The world tilted, and before he could stop himself, he collapsed onto the dirt path. Rosweiss paused, glancing down at him with an arched brow. "Fainted already," she scoffed, more amused than concerned. "What a fragile little human." With a sigh, she shifted into her dragon form, her silver scales gleaming in the dim light. Her massive jaws gently scooped Leon up, placing him atop her head. "This time," she muttered, her voice a low rumble, "I'll take that as a plea for mercy." With a powerful beat of her wings, Rosweiss lifted off into the sky, carrying Leon toward the distant silver dragon castle. As they soared above the forest, her thoughts wandered, a strange warmth stirring in her chest. Perhaps, just perhaps, this human wasn't as tiresome as she had first thought, and Leon, even in his unconscious state, might soon realize that no matter how far he tried to run, he was
Opening with Leon's awakening. Leon's body felt heavy, his limbs sluggish as he slowly blinked his eyes open. The soft morning light filtered through the unfamiliar room, casting a warm glow over the wooden walls and unfamiliar furnishings. His muscles ached as if every part of him had been through a fight, and knowing his luck, it probably had. "Ugh!" Leon groaned, wincing from the sharp twinge in his side. Before he could sit up properly, a cheerful, high-pitched voice cut through the haze in his mind. "Dad, you're awake." Mune, the tiny half-dragon child, stood beside him, her bright tail flicking back and forth like an excited puppy. Leon stared at her for a moment, his thoughts slow to catch up. "Dad?" That word still didn't sit well with him, no matter how often she said it. He dragged himself upright, glancing around the room with a confused frown. "Ugh. How did I get back here?" he muttered, rubbing his eyes. Mune beamed. "It was Mom who brought you back?" Her tail wagged harder, a blur of excitement. At the mention of her, Leon's mind immediately darkened. Images of last night's encounter flooded back, Rosweiss' cold, calculating gaze, the sharp sting of her claws, and his failed escape attempt. A scowl spread across his face. "Damn it, she finally caught me like prey." His thoughts were interrupted when he noticed something strange. His hand was wrapped in a bandage, the white cloth neatly tied around the wound Rosweiss had inflicted. "What is?" Leon muttered, turning his hand over in disbelief. Mune's golden eyes sparkled with pride. "I'm the one who bandaged it for Dad," she chirped, practically glowing under the hope for praise. Leon blinked at her. Dragons are supposed to be ferocious, he thought, recalling everything he knew from years of dragon hunting. They grow up steeped in violence and blood from birth, but this child... He glanced down at the little girl, who looked up at him with nothing but pure adoration. "She's nothing like the dragons I've known." Could it be because she was a hybrid, a mix of dragon and human? Or maybe, Mune's innocent affection was something he simply wasn't prepared for. With a small, awkward smile, Leon reached out and patted her head. "Well, Mune is awesome." Mune giggled, the sound light and happy. "Hee hee." Leon's smile deepened for a moment, but then he leaned in, lowering his voice. "Mune, you're cute now, but when you grow up, promise me you won't become like your mother." Mune tilted her head in confusion. "Ha!" Just then, a familiar voice drifted from behind him, low, calm, but carrying an edge of warning. "And what's wrong with being like me?" Leon's heart skipped a beat as he turned to see Rosweiss standing in the doorway, her silver hair catching the morning light. "How does she always sneak up on me like this?" Leon thought, swallowing hard as he looked away from her piercing gaze. And nothing. Oblivious to the tension, Myun happily held up Leon's bandaged hand. Mom, look. Myun bandaged Dad's wound just like you told me to. Rosweiss gave a brief nod, her expression cool and unreadable. This is what you should do. Yes, Mom. Myun replied with eager obedience. Watching the exchange, Leon couldn't help but feel the weight of Rosweiss' strictness. What a strict mother, he thought with a sigh. Patting Myun on the head again, he offered her a conspiratorial smile. Myun, how about you go hide in the garden? I'll count to 100, and then I'll come find you, okay? Myun's eyes lit up with excitement. Really? Dad wants to play hide and seek with Myun. Leon chuckled. Of course. Now, go quick, before I start counting. Myun let out a delighted squeal and bolted for the door. Oh no, don't count so fast, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Leon started counting slowly, watching her tail flick as she disappeared around the corner. Leon confronts Rosweiss. As soon as Myun was out of sight, Leon dropped his cheerful facade and turned to Rosweiss, his expression serious. Hey, I need to talk to you. Rosweiss raised an eyebrow. What? Aren't you being a little too hard on her? Leon asked, crossing his arms. Rosweiss' gaze didn't waver. We dragons all go through this. Only by being strict with our children from a young age can we cultivate strong warriors. Leon groaned, running a hand through his messy hair. But she's not fully dragon. And besides, Myun is adorable. How can you stand to be so cold toward her? Rosweiss' silver eyes narrowed slightly. She is a dragon. And calling a dragon cute is an insult? Leon smirked. You're pretty cute, too. The moment the words left his mouth, Rosweiss' expression shifted. She grabbed him by the collar, yanking him toward her with surprising force. Her breath was warm against his ear as she whispered, You're just a slave for me to vent my anger on. Don't get ahead of yourself. Leon's face paled. Satisfied with his reaction, Rosweiss released him and stepped back, smoothing her hair with an air of superiority. I am the queen of the silver dragons. I have many responsibilities, so the task of raising the child is yours. Before Leon could protest, Rosweiss leaned in once more, her voice soft but firm. That child likes you, Leon. Don't disappoint her. Myun's trick. As Rosweiss left the room, Leon let out a heavy sigh. It's like being a dragon slayer means I'm stuck babysitting. Just then, out of the corner of his eye, Leon spotted a familiar little figure peeking out from behind a pillar. He smirked. Myun, did you really think I wouldn't notice you? He called out playfully, Found you, Myun. But instead of giggling and coming out, Myun's expression was strange. She stared at him for a moment, then suddenly turned and ran off. Myun. Leon blinked in confusion. Hey, wait. He took off after her, weaving through the hallways. Why are you running? What's wrong? He followed her down the corridor, but when he rounded the corner, she was gone. What the? Leon scratched his head in frustration. I just saw her pass this way. Suddenly, a soft giggle sounded behind him. Got you, Dad. Leon whirled around to see Myun standing right beside him, grinning from ear to ear. Wait, didn't you just run past me? Myun tilted her head in confusion. Nope. Dad couldn't find me, so I came to find you. Leon blinked, his mind racing. Did I imagine it? Before he could dwell on it, Myun grabbed his hand, tugging him toward the garden. Come on, Dad. I want to show you something. As Leon let himself be pulled along, as they headed deeper into the garden, Leon failed to notice another figure lurking in the shadows, a second Myun, silently watching them from a distance. The Garden of Secrets. Leon followed Myun through the garden, the vibrant colors of the flowers around them contrasting sharply with the heaviness in his heart. Each petal seemed to bloom with life, a reminder of the innocence he so desperately wanted to protect. Where are we going, Myun? He asked, trying to keep his tone light despite the undercurrent of unease that had settled in his gut. To my secret spot, she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. You're gonna love it. Leon couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. It was contagious, and he found himself swept up in her joy, even as questions nagged at the back of his mind. What's so special about it? He probed, feigning curiosity to keep the conversation flowing. It's a surprise. Myun giggled, pulling him along as she led him deeper into the foliage. As they navigated through the garden, Leon took a moment to observe his surroundings. The garden was a realm of beauty, filled with vibrant flowers and lush greenery. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground. It was a stark contrast to the battles he often found himself in, a peaceful sanctuary that felt foreign yet comforting. He recalled the last battle he had fought, the feeling of the sword in his hand and the adrenaline coursing through his veins. But now, as he played hide-and-seek with his daughter, it felt as though those moments of violence belonged to a different life, one he was desperately trying to escape. Here we are, Myun exclaimed, her voice pulling him from his thoughts. They arrived at a secluded spot in the garden, a small clearing surrounded by tall, flowering bushes. In the center stood a gnarled tree with branches that reached toward the sky, its trunk wide and sturdy. Myun's eyes sparkled as she pointed at the tree. Isn't.
The garden was a sanctuary of vibrant life, nestled just beyond the castle's grand arches. Sunlight filtered through the branches of ancient trees, casting a gentle dappled light across the stone path lined with blooming flowers. Birds sang from the treetops, their melodies mingling with the soft murmur of water cascading from the nearby fountain. Leon took in the serene scene with a smile as he spotted Myun sitting near a bed of colorful roses, focused on her drawing. She hummed softly, her little head bent over a piece of paper. Her tiny fingers gripped a colored pencil, moving with a careful concentration that made Leon's heart swell. Myun's tune was simple and sweet, carrying a sense of innocence that warmed Leon's heart. He watched her with a soft smile, feeling a warmth spread through him that was deeper than pride. It was love, a father's love. It's good to have a daughter, he thought, sighing with contentment. It feels like my soul is healed just being near her. The joys of fatherhood, he mused, were something he never fully understood until Myun came into his life. Before long, she looked up, catching sight of him watching her, and her face broke into a cheerful grin. She jumped to her feet and dashed over, holding her drawing proudly. Dad! Dad! She called, her voice bright with excitement. Look! Myun drew a family portrait. Leon chuckled, taking the drawing from her small hands. He inspected it with a father's proud gaze. The picture was a charming array of colorful stick figures, drawn with all the earnestness of a child's love. He felt a surge of pride. Myun is awesome, he declared, nodding approvingly. She's definitely her daddy's daughter. But his smile faltered slightly as his eyes caught a small detail. There were two small figures standing by the parent figures. He raised an eyebrow, looking at Myun in confusion. Wait, Myun, why are there two kids here? He asked, thinking she might have made a mistake. Myun's face lit up as she pointed enthusiastically at the drawing. That's my sister, she announced, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Leon blinked, stunned into silence. Myun has a sister? His mind raced, and he could almost feel his thoughts scrambling for an answer. So it turns out I didn't just hit the target once, but twice with a single shot? His expression turned to one of bemusement as he recalled a fleeting moment earlier that day. In the garden, he had noticed another child in the distance, but had dismissed it as Myun. The child I saw in the garden, he thought, feeling a pang of regret. I must have called her by the wrong name. No wonder she looked so cross. Lost in thought, he barely noticed Myun's serious expression as she continued, her voice earnest. Sister isn't angry, Dad, Myun assured him with a nod. She's just a little shy when she sees you. Leon felt a tug of sympathy. Indeed, we haven't met each other much, he mused aloud, softening as he considered what he'd missed. It's only natural that we're not familiar with each other. But a part of him couldn't shake a lingering frustration. It's all the Dragon Queen's doing, hiding this child from me, he thought, his expression hardening. I'll have to confront her for the truth. In the study. The door to Rosweiss' study swung open with a bang, and Leon stormed in, his eyes blazing. The room was dimly lit, the scent of ink and ancient parchment heavy in the air. A small silver dragon, perched on the edge of Rosweiss' desk, gave a startled squawk. Rosweiss. Leon's voice was a mixture of accusation and exasperation. Rosweiss, seated at her desk, looked up with calm, cool eyes. Where's Myun? She asked, not missing a beat. Leon crossed his arms, his brow furrowing. She's out playing, with her sister, he replied, his tone edged with accusation. You're really something, hiding things from me. When were you planning on telling me that I have an older daughter? Rosweiss smiled faintly, a glint of amusement in her eyes. Haven't you already figured it out by now? Leon let out a sarcastic chuckle. Well, I have to thank you. Giving birth to a child is no small feat. I didn't expect you'd gone through all that trouble not once, but twice on my behalf. He shook his head, his tone carrying a hint of mock indignation. When I return to the Empire someday, I'll make sure your name is inscribed on the family tree for this sacrifice. Rosweiss' gaze sharpened, her voice taking on a note of suspicion. Do you even understand why I didn't tell you about my eldest daughter? Leon straightened, returning her gaze with a hint of defiance. Why? I'm guessing you were jealous of my closeness to Myun, So you decided not to let Noah meet me. Rosweiss tilted her head, studying him with a bemused smile. Are you that eager to see her? Nonsense, Leon replied, a faint blush creeping onto his cheeks. What father wouldn't want to meet his own daughter? Unlike you, a cold and stern mother, I actually want to build a relationship with her. Rosweiss smirked, reclining slightly as she rested her chin on her hand, her expression revealing nothing but mystery. Very well, then. But don't say I didn't warn you. In the kitchen. The kitchen was alive with the warm sense of simmering stew and searing meat, a cozy contrast to the grandeur of the castle. Leon, his laughter filling the room, playfully wielded a knife as he prepared a meal for his daughters. Hee Rosweiss, he chuckled, the mere act of cooking lifting his spirits. I'm going to make you look good today, he declared with determination, his heart swelling with the hope of forging a closer bond with his eldest daughter Noah. Open her stomach with delicious food, he mused, envisioning the joyful expressions on both Myun and Noah's faces as they savored his culinary creation. It was a father's instinct, a belief that nourishing his children would draw them closer together. As he stirred the pot, memories flooded back. I used to make this cream stew often for my team. Everyone who tasted it said it was good. The sweet taste is also suitable for children, he reflected, recalling how he had shared many meals filled with laughter and camaraderie. He took a careful taste of the soup, savoring the flavors. Not bad. My cooking skills are not rusty, he said, pleased with his progress. His mind raced with anticipation. This taste will definitely win Noah over. Noah loves the food her dad cooks the most. The thought filled him with warmth, igniting a hope that maybe, just maybe, this meal could bridge the gap between them. In the corner of the kitchen, two maids exchanged glances. The prince has just recovered from a serious illness, and he still cooks for his family, one remarked, her voice filled with admiration. He is really a good male dragon who cares about his family. Just then, another maid noticed Rosweiss entering the kitchen. Her Majesty, she exclaimed, stepping back respectfully. Rosweiss glanced around, her presence commanding attention. You don't have to wait for orders at dinner tonight. Go and have a rest, she instructed, her voice softening as she dismissed the maids. Thank you, Her Majesty, the maids responded, bowing deeply before slipping out of the room, leaving Leon and Rosweiss alone amidst the clatter of pots and the bubbling of stew. Leon turned to Rosweiss, a hopeful smile on his face. You guys came just in time. Suddenly, Myun burst into the kitchen, her eyes bright with excitement. Dad. What a nice smell. With joy radiating from him, Leon replied, I heard that you two love meat the most, so I made stew and steak especially for you. The pride in his voice was palpable, a father's desire to please his children shining through. Noah, do you feel your father's feelings? He wondered, glancing at Noah, who stood quietly to the side, her expression inscrutable. To his surprise, she was not even looking at him. Why is it different from what I thought? Leon's heart sank slightly. This female dragon had anticipated this situation, so she had not allowed me to meet Noah. Rosweiss, sensing the tension, gently pushed Noah forward. This is your first formal meeting. Please introduce yourselves, she encouraged, her tone both nurturing and commanding. Yes, mother, Noah replied flatly, her voice lacking any warmth. She looked up just long enough to state, I am Noah K. Melkv, the eldest daughter of the Silver Dragon Queen Rosweiss. I am 1 year and 2 months old. Leon felt a flicker of admiration mixed with disappointment. Dragons are an immortal race, and baby dragons grow faster than human children, he reminded himself, his heart heavy with the challenge ahead. Extending his hand, Leon greeted her. Hello, Noah. My name is Leon Cosmode, and I'm your father. The second step for Leon to get closer to his eldest daughter, say hello politely and leave a good impression, he thought, hope swelling in his chest. But Noah didn't even react to his gesture, her gaze slipping back to the floor as if he were invisible. Why is this child so cold? Does she have a grudge against me? He pondered, feeling a tightening in his chest as disappointment washed over him. Myun, ever the supportive sister, leaned in and whispered to Noah, Sister, please talk more. Don't embarrass Dad. But he looks so weak, Noah replied, her voice laced with doubt. Is he really our father? Leon felt his heart shatter at her words. What a filial daughter, he thought, sorrow flooding through him. It was a painful reminder of the distance that had grown between them, a chasm he had not yet crossed. As he stood there, Leon's mind whirled with emotions. He felt vulnerable, exposed in a way he had never anticipated. Leon's career as a father faces its first crisis, he recognized, understanding that building a relationship with Noah would not be as simple as he had imagined. Determined not to give in to despair, he recalled how relationships were often tested by trials and misunderstandings. "I will not let this moment define our future," he vowed silently. There had to be a way to reach her, to show her the love he held in his heart, even if she could not see it yet. As the aroma of the cooking stew filled the kitchen, he took a deep breath and prepared to engage with his daughters. He needed to find a way to break through Noah's barriers, to reassure her that he was there for her, ready to be the father she needed. The path ahead was uncertain, but Leon knew that love, in all its forms, could heal even the deepest wounds. He was ready to fight for his family, no matter how long it took.
Family dinners are supposed to be a moment of warmth, unity, and shared stories, a chance to come together after a long day of separate activities. For most, it's an opportunity to unwind, laugh, and bond with loved ones. However, for Leon, family dinners had slowly become something of a torment. What was once a peaceful gathering had evolved into a daily battleground, one in which he found himself unable to win despite all his efforts to maintain a peaceful and loving atmosphere. As the family sat around the dinner table, the clinking of silverware on plates filled the room, the aroma of freshly cooked food wafting through the air. For Myun, this was the highlight of her day. She turned to her twin sister with an eager expression. "Sister, help me cut it," Myun requested, holding up her food with a pleading look. Noah, Myun's twin sister, was an entirely different personality. While Myun had always been cheerful, eager to help, and seemingly innocent, Noah had a more straightforward and often cold demeanor. Leon couldn't help but notice how their physical appearances were nearly identical, yet their personalities couldn't have been more different. It was a constant source of confusion for him, and often frustration, as Noah's bluntness clashed with the otherwise warm atmosphere of their home. Leon turned toward Noah, trying to engage in conversation to ease the tension he often felt during meals. "Noah, do you like today's food?" he asked, forcing a smile. Noah, without skipping a beat, responded with a deadpan expression. "Disgusting," she said, her words blunt and unforgiving. A small chuckle escaped Roswise's lips as she tried to stifle her amusement, her hand gently covering her mouth to keep from laughing too loudly. Leon couldn't help but feel the sting of Noah's words, but he quickly suppressed the feeling, trying to maintain some semblance of composure. Roswise, ever the supportive wife, didn't seem bothered by Noah's remarks at all. Myun, completely oblivious to the tension, continued with her cheerful disposition. "Mom, why are you so happy?" she asked while chewing her food. Roswise smiled warmly at Myun, her gaze fond and proud. "Your father finally got to reunite with our family. Seeing him so happy, I'm naturally happy too." She leaned toward Leon, her eyes sparkling with affection. "Right, Leon? Why aren't you smiling?" she asked, her voice laced with teasing curiosity. Leon quickly forced a smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Ha ha ha, of course, I'm happy to be with my family," he said, his voice carrying a tinge of sarcasm that he hoped would go unnoticed. Myun, ever the optimist, raised her spoon in the air and beamed. "Then Dad, can you have dinner with us every day?" Leon hesitated for a moment, his mind racing for an appropriate response. The thought of enduring daily meals with his family, especially with Roswise and Noah's constant challenges, filled him with dread. He glanced over at Noah, who had already returned to eating with a stern expression, and then at Roswise, who was watching him with that same annoying glint in her eyes. "Well," Leon stammered, searching for the right words, "I don't know if that's possible." Inside, however, Leon was thinking to himself, "I don't want to eat with this female dragon every day." Before Leon could even finish his thought, Noah spoke up, cutting through the silence with her usual bluntness. "No," she declared firmly, her tone brooking no argument. Myun, still holding her spoon and looking genuinely curious, turned to Noah. Why not? Noah's eyes narrowed as she stared at her twin sister. Because I want to study at the Young Dragon Department of St. Heath Academy, she said, her words firm and resolute. Rossweiss looked at Noah with a mixture of pride and amusement. The Young Dragon Department of St. Heath Academy is full of dragons that are only 4 or 5 years old. Why are you in such a hurry to enroll? She asked, her voice dripping with gentle reproach. Noah's face remained unchanging as she responded, her voice tinged with determination. Because I want to defeat more dragon slayers. The statement sent a chill down Leon's spine. He had suspected something was amiss, but hearing Noah's words confirmed his worst fears. It seemed his own daughter, the child he had raised, was eager to face off against dragon slayers, even at such a young age. Leon wiped his mouth nervously, as he thought to himself, it seems this child wants to defeat me, her own father. Dragon slayers are all very brave, Leon said aloud, trying to reason with Noah in a calm tone. But you're still so young, and you could get hurt. Noah simply glared at him, her eyes cold and defiant. Don't treat me like a child, she said sharply. Leon's mind screamed in frustration, you are a child. Rossweiss, ever the supportive mother, leaned in with a proud smile. I think Noah's idea is pretty good. The sooner she learns the skills, the sooner she can fight the dragon slayers, she said, her tone full of approval as she glanced toward Leon. Isn't that right, Leon? Or do you have a reason to stop Noah from going to school? Leon was now on the defensive. He had to be careful not to oppose this too harshly, or else Noah would start resenting him even more. He could already see the tension between them growing, and the last thing he wanted was for his own daughter to think he was some kind of obstacle to her ambitions. If I continue to oppose it, Noah will definitely hate me as a father even more, Leon thought to himself. I can only change her mind subtly. No more, Leon said aloud, his voice strained. He tried to hide his feelings, but Rossweiss was perceptive. She noticed his frustration and her smile grew wider, as if she had already won. Leon could feel the pressure mounting, knowing that this dinner was quickly becoming a battlefield in a war he was losing. Rossweiss, her eyes glinting with triumph, continued. Since your father's okay with it, it's happily decided. The entrance test for St. Heath's Academy will be held in a month. During this month, your father will help you prepare. Noah's eyes lit up with excitement, and she gave her mother an enthusiastic nod. Yes, Mother! The tension in the room was palpable, and the once peaceful dinner had now descended into something far more complicated. Leon was caught between a rock and a hard place, forced to agree with a plan he didn't support in order to keep the peace. But as the dinner came to a close, Leon couldn't let go of the uneasy feeling in his stomach. Hey, Rossweiss! Leon called out, his frustration boiling over. These plates haven't been cleaned yet. Rossweiss, unfazed, waved her hand dismissively. Just let the servants do this, she said, clearly uninterested in any further housework. Leon, however, had different plans. He didn't want to simply sit back and let the evening end on this note. After dinner, the couple cleans up and washes the plates together, Leon insisted. This is the correct way to end a family dinner. Rossweiss raised an eyebrow, but Leon could see the glimmer of amusement in her eyes. She knew what he was trying to do, and she wasn't going to let him win so easily. Don't you want to create a harmonious family atmosphere in front of them? Leon whispered to Rossweiss, trying to coax her into playing along, even if just for appearances. Even if it's just fake. Rossweiss looked over at Mune, who was still eagerly waiting for something to happen. All right, Rossweiss agreed, playing along. Mune raised her hands in excitement, eager to help. Mune also wants to help. But just as they were about to get up, Noah interrupted. She stood up, grabbing Mune's hand and pulling her away. Come with me, she said, dragging her sister away from the dinner table. Myun, a little confused but still happy to go along with Noah's lead, asked, "Sister, where are we going?" As Noah and Myun left the room, Roswise turned toward Leon, wearing an apron and looking somewhat smug. "When are you going to help?" she asked with a teasing smile. Leon's patience was at its limit. He could feel the fire of frustration burning in his chest, but he knew he couldn't let his anger get the best of him. He had to play it cool, or else everything would fall apart. He crossed his arms and puffed out his chest. "Roswise, have you forgotten what I said 2 years ago?" he said, his tone serious. "You should never be alone with the highly trained and strongest dragon slayer." Roswise's expression faltered for just a moment, a flash of concern crossing her face. "Leon, what do you want to do?" she asked, her voice low and guarded. Leon narrowed his eyes, a sense of resolve settling in his chest. "Before, I traveled a long distance and was exhausted, so I was controlled and played with by your dragon pattern," he said, his voice calm but filled with purpose. "Now it is different." Roswise didn't give him a chance to finish his thought. With a flick of her tail, she launched an attack, her dragon tail swinging toward Leon with the speed and power of a storm. "Don't think you can escape from here by using this trick," Roswise said, her eyes filled with determination. Leon, however, was ready. He blocked her attack with one hand, his strength and resolve unwavering. "Who said I was going to run away?" he retorted, his voice filled with confidence. Roswise stood there, her body trembling as the power of the dragon coursed through her. The overwhelming surge of magic, so intense it almost felt as if it was consuming her from within, left her struggling to maintain control. Her lips parted, attempting to form words, but the force of the dragon's essence rendered her voice a weak, unintelligible murmur. Her breath came in shallow gasps, each inhalation sending another wave of heat through her chest. The once proud and indomitable dragoness felt helpless, vulnerable, and weak. As the magic enveloped her, she could no longer keep her balance. Her legs gave out, and she crumpled to the ground with a soft thud, her golden eyes wide with confusion and frustration. Before she could fully recover, she felt a sharp tug on her tail. Leon, ever the unpredictable and infuriating man, was holding it with a vice-like grip, his expression one of amusement and malice. His fingers dug into her sensitive tail, and Roswise's breath hitched as the sensation of his touch sent an unwanted shiver through her body. The dragon pattern marking on her tail made it an area of immense sensitivity, and his touch felt almost unbearable. "Are you truly unable to do anything, Your Majesty?" Leon taunted, his voice oozing with mocking superiority. He leaned down, his face inches from hers, as he continued to apply pressure to her tail. "The dragon pattern makes your tail incredibly sensitive. You're like a kitten when it's grabbed by the scruff of its neck, weak and powerless." Roswise's heart raced in indignation, but her body betrayed her. Despite her attempts to summon the strength to push him away, she could barely muster the will to lift a finger. She had never been so vulnerable before, not in all her years as a dragon, and it filled her with an intense, simmering mixture of shame and fury. But more than anything, she felt helpless. Her pride, the pride that had always been her shield, was slipping away, leaving her exposed. "This is the new knowledge I've discovered from your dragon book," Leon continued, his words a calculated insult designed to chip away at her dignity. His gaze darkened with a cruel satisfaction, like a man who had discovered a secret weakness and was intent on exploiting it. "I've learned a great deal about dragons from your precious tome." The implications of his words stung, but Roswise's mind barely had time to focus on them, as she was left reeling from his touch. She wanted to snap back, to remind him that she was a dragon, powerful and unstoppable, but her words failed her. Her head throbbed from the intensity of the magic she had unleashed, and her body felt as though it was being pulled apart by the force of it. She closed her eyes, trying to steady herself, but the sensation of Leon's hold on her tail was the only thing that anchored her to reality. She felt weak, utterly powerless under his control. Then, as if sensing her helplessness, Leon moved closer still. His body pressed against hers, his breath warm against her cheek. Rossweiss tried to turn her face away, to maintain some semblance of dignity, but his proximity felt suffocating, and she couldn't escape the infernal heat of his presence. His voice dropped to a near whisper, sending a shiver down her spine. "Rossweiss," he said, his tone both mocking and enticing. "You dragons are so eager to conquer and control everything around you, but have you ever been conquered?" Rossweiss' eyes shot open at his words, and her heart pounded in her chest. The question, so simple and yet so pointed, struck a deep chord within her. It was a challenge, an accusation wrapped in venomous sweetness. Her pride as a dragon, her pride as a warrior, was something she had guarded with her very life. The thought of being conquered, of losing herself to someone else, especially someone like Leon, was anathema to everything she stood for. Her face flushed red, a deep blush coloring her cheeks as the weight of his words hit her. She was acutely aware of how her body responded to him, how her pulse quickened, how her breath hitched, how every inch of her skin burned with both shame and a strange, reluctant desire. She hated it. She hated the way he made her feel. How his touch, though painful, also made her body react in ways she could not control. Leon knew it too. He saw the crimson hue staining her cheeks, and a wicked smile played at the corners of his lips. It was a smile of triumph, a smile that spoke of victory even though she had not yet surrendered. He knew he had found her weakness. He knew she was no longer the untouchable dragoness she had once been. In that moment, Rossweiss was exposed, vulnerable, her pride stripped away like a fragile veneer. And he reveled in it. I am not weak," Rossweiss managed to say, her voice shaky but fierce despite the circumstances. She had to fight back, had to find some way to reclaim her strength. Her tail twitched slightly, but Leon's grip remained firm. She tried to push him away, but the energy from the dragon magic left her weak and disoriented. Leon didn't release her, though. Instead, he chuckled darkly, his eyes locking with hers, as if daring her to continue the fight. "You still don't get it, do you, Rossweiss?" His voice was low, almost a whisper, but the mockery in it was unmistakable. "You're no longer in control. You're not the one with the power now. The dragon magic is all-consuming, and you're just a vessel for it. You're weak, and no matter how much you fight it, I will always have the upper hand." Rossweiss clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms as she struggled to remain calm. She hated this. She hated the way Leon made her feel, both helpless and angered, caught in a tangle of emotions that made no sense. He was her enemy, her tormentor, and yet there was something undeniably magnetic about him. His words and actions were an assault on her pride, yes, but they also stirred something else in her, something darker, something more dangerous. Her heart pounded as their gazes locked, the tension between them palpable. In that moment, Rossweiss could not decide whether she wanted to strike him down for his arrogance or pull him closer and give in to the strange pull he had over her. For a fleeting moment, she was torn between love and hate, between the powerful dragoness she had always been and the woman who was beginning to question her own strength in the face of his challenge.